What if you started receiving threatening messages from someone who knew everything about you? Where you lived, what you were wearing, even who you were with? What if those messages never stopped? Day after day, year after year, no matter how many times you changed your number or blocked them, and what if the person sending them had been dead all along? It sounds impossible, like something out of a horror movie, but for one man, this was his reality, and the truth behind it, more twisted than anyone could have imagined. Stay tuned as we uncover the shocking case of the woman who was murdered and then took over her own killer's life. Cari Farver was the kind of woman people admired. Smart, driven, and fiercely independent, she had built a stable life for herself and her son, Max, in Macedonia, Iowa. A talented computer programmer, she thrived in a field where precision and logic were everything. She was meticulous, responsible, the kind of person who didn't just vanish. Her life revolved around Max. As a single mother, Cari worked hard to balance career and family, ensuring he had everything he needed. She kept her word. She followed routines. She was the last person anyone would expect to disappear without a trace. So when she did, it wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. The last person to see Cari before she went missing was Dave Kroupa, a mechanic living in Omaha, Nebraska. He had no idea that a simple decision, to keep things casual, would throw him into the center of a nightmare. Dave wasn't looking for commitment. After ending a long-term relationship, he embraced the single life, meeting women through dating apps with no intention of settling down. When he met Cari, it seemed perfect, at least on paper. She didn't want anything serious either. No strings, no expectations, just something easy. At least that's what he thought. But Dave wasn't the only one who thought he had a place in Cari's life. There was someone else. Her name was Liz Golyar. Liz had met Dave the same way Cari had, through casual dating. There was no deep connection, no love story, just another short-lived fling. And yet, unlike the others, Liz never really left. Even after Dave made it clear he didn't want anything serious, she remained in his orbit, always nearby, always available. At first, it seemed harmless, but sometimes, the most dangerous people don't appear dangerous at all. Because the moment Cari walked into Dave's life, everything changed. It started with little things, small coincidences, but then those coincidences became something darker, unsettling. And then Cari was gone. No warning, no explanation, just gone. But soon, the messages would start, the threats, the mind games, and whoever was behind them knew everything. Cari Farver had disappeared. And somehow, she wouldn't stay gone. November 2012. It was supposed to be just another day. Cari Farver left Dave Kroupa's apartment that morning, heading off to work as usual. But after that, she was never seen again. No calls, no messages to her family, no sign of where she went. Then the texts began. At first, they seemed ordinary, like the emotional fallout of a relationship turning sour. Cari suddenly wanted more. She insisted on moving in with Dave, even though they had both agreed to keep things casual. The sudden shift in behavior was strange, but not alarming, until Dave said no. The messages became hostile. The warm, playful tone was gone, replaced by something sharp, angry, persistent. At first it was just insults, then threats. "You'll regret this. I hate you. You ruined my life." They kept coming. Dozens of messages turned into hundreds, then thousands. No matter how many times Dave blocked her number, the messages wouldn't stop. They came from different numbers, unknown accounts. The sender knew things, personal things, where Dave was, what he was doing, who he was with. At first, he tried to brush it off. Maybe she was just upset. Maybe with time, she would stop. But the messages didn't stop. Instead, they escalated. His car was damaged. Deep scratches along the sides, tires punctured. At first, it seemed random, until a message followed. "Next time, it'll be worse." His work computer was hacked. Emails flooded in, messages from Cari flashing across his screen at odd hours. "You can't hide from me. I will never leave you alone. I'm always watching. It was relentless. No matter what he did, she always found a way back in. And then, things took an even darker turn. One night, Dave came home to find a note taped to his door. No signature, just a warning. I see everything. The paranoia set in. Was she outside, watching from a distance? How was she always one step ahead? But Dave wasn't the only one being tormented. Liz Golyar, another woman he had casually dated, told him she was being harassed too. She claimed she had been receiving the same disturbing messages. At first, Dave thought it was another strange coincidence. Maybe Cari was targeting her as well. Then, Liz's house caught fire. Fire investigators couldn't determine the exact cause, but Liz had an answer. It was Cari. She was sure of it. And that wasn't all. Liz reported that her pets had been harmed. Another attack. Another message from Cari, taking credit. By now, the story seemed clear. Cari Farver had vanished without a trace, only to return as a relentless, unseen force. An obsessed, vengeful stalker. A digital ghost, haunting their every move. It didn't make sense. If Cari was watching them, where was she? Why hadn't anyone seen her? And yet, no matter how many times Dave changed his number, no matter how many times he blocked the messages, she always found a way back. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was personal, and it was terrifying. For 4 years, the messages continued. Dave would wake up to threats, warnings, messages detailing his every move. Sometimes, they would stop for a while, just long enough for him to think it was finally over. But it was never over, because Cari wasn't just missing. She had become a nightmare that wouldn't end. And the truth behind it? More twisted than anyone could have ever imagined. If you've made it this far, you're clearly as deep into this story as we are. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We see you, and we appreciate you. For 4 years, Dave Kroupa lived under the belief that Cari Farver had become a relentless, vengeful stalker. The messages, the threats, the destruction, it all pointed to her. It seemed impossible, yet undeniable. Cari had disappeared, only to return as a ghost haunting his every move. But something was off. Despite the endless stream of messages, Cari was never actually seen. Not by Dave. Not by her family. Not by law enforcement. It didn't make sense. How could she be so active online, sending thousands of texts and emails, yet leave behind no real-world trace? There were no credit card transactions, no withdrawals from her bank account, no verified sightings. Cari had supposedly gone on a rampage of harassment, yet there was not a single recorded instance of her being physically present anywhere. It was as if she had transformed into pure data, a person who existed only in digital form. Years passed, and for a long time, law enforcement assumed what many did, that Cari was alive somewhere, unhinged, and living off the grid. But in 2015, a fresh set of eyes took over the case. Detectives Jim Doty and Ryan Avis from the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office decided to go back to the beginning. They started asking the right questions. If Cari had truly been alive all this time, why had she not used her bank account? Why had she not reached out to her mother, Nancy Rainey, or her son, Max? Why was there no single piece of security footage, no credible sighting, no voice recordings, no photos, nothing that proved she was still out there? The more they investigated, the more they realized that everything, the texts, the emails, the threats, had one thing in common. They all led back to Liz Golyar. The woman who had spent years claiming she was one of Cari's victims was actually the mastermind behind it all. It was Liz who had sent every message. Liz who had burned down her own house. Liz who had made it look like Cari was alive, when, in reality, she had taken Cari's life the very day she disappeared. Cari never stalked Dave. She never sent those messages. She never tormented Liz, because Cari was dead, and Liz had become her. The shocking discovery. Detectives obtained a warrant for Liz's phone, determined to uncover how deep this deception went. What they found was far worse than anything they could have imagined. Hidden within Liz's deleted files, forensic experts recovered a disturbing photograph. A decomposing human foot. It wasn't just an image, it was evidence. A trophy. Liz had killed Cari, disposed of her body, and at some point, she had taken a photo of the remains. It was one of the few physical traces left of Cari's existence, proof that Liz had been with her after her disappearance. Then came another discovery. Buried in Liz's phone was an unsent draft message, written in Cari's name. A fake confession. In it, Cari admitted to leaving town, abandoning her family, and disappearing by choice. It was Liz's attempt to tie up loose ends, to fabricate a final message that would close the case in her favor. But she never sent it. Perhaps she thought she didn't need to. Perhaps she had already convinced everyone of her version of reality. For years, she had controlled the narrative, making people believe that Cari was alive and dangerous. She had played both predator and victim, manipulating everyone around her. But her arrogance had been her downfall. The very digital footprint she used to torment and mislead had now become the evidence that exposed her crime. Liz Golyar had killed Cari Farver, and for 4 years, she had lived as her. She thought she had gotten away with it, thought she had erased Cari from existence. But in the end, it was Cari's digital ghost, the very messages Liz had crafted, that led investigators straight to the truth. For 4 years, Liz Golyar had controlled the narrative. She made sure everyone believed that Cari Farver was alive, but had spiraled into obsession, turning into a digital stalker who wouldn't let go. Liz had manipulated not only Dave Kroupa, but also law enforcement, weaving an elaborate deception that made everyone believe she was the victim. But by late 2016, her carefully constructed illusion began to crumble. Investigators had spent months piecing together the puzzle. Every threatening text, every eerie email, every so-called sighting of Cari led back to one source: Liz Golyar. The damning evidence was found on Liz's phone, hidden in deleted files that she had assumed were lost forever. A photograph of a decomposing human foot was recovered. It wasn't just disturbing, it was proof. Proof that Liz had been in possession of Cari's remains. Then there was the unsent draft message, a fabricated confession written as if from Cari herself, detailing her supposed regret and disappearance. It was Liz's last attempt to control the story, to tie up loose ends, to erase any suspicion that might still linger. But it was too late. Detectives had enough to charge Liz with first-degree murder, and in December 2016, she was arrested. When confronted with the overwhelming evidence, she remained stone-faced. No breakdown, no remorse, just cold denial. She had spent years gaslighting those around her, planting doubt, feeding paranoia, and making people question what was real and what wasn't. Now, as the truth was laid bare, she refused to acknowledge what she had done. Liz had played a long game of deception, but her control over the narrative was finally slipping away. By 2017, Liz stood trial for the murder of Cari Farver. Prosecutors presented the chilling details of how she had impersonated Cari for years, tormenting Dave and those close to him through an elaborate web of deception. The prosecution painted a picture of pure obsession. Liz wanted Dave to herself. Cari was nothing more than an obstacle in her mind, someone she could erase. But rather than simply getting rid of her, she did something far more twisted. She became her. The jury listened as prosecutors detailed how Liz had taken over Cari's digital life, sending texts and emails that kept everyone convinced she was alive. The evidence was staggering. Messages sent from accounts traced back to Liz, the disturbing photo of Cari's remains on her phone, and the fabricated confession she had prepared. One by one, the pieces fell into place. The defense had little ground to stand on. There was no plausible explanation for why Liz had images of Cari's remains on her device. No explanation for why the threats and messages never stopped, even when Liz was the only common denominator. Still, Liz refused to break character. She sat in court, emotionless, offering no insight, no apology, no acknowledgement of the horror she had caused. She had spent 4 years manipulating reality, but in this moment, the illusion was over. The verdict. It didn't take long for the jury to reach a decision. In August 2017, Liz Golyar was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She showed no remorse as the sentence was read. No apologies, no regret. Even as the reality of a lifetime behind bars set in, she never admitted to what she had done. It was fitting in a way. She had spent years creating a fiction, and now she was clinging to it to the very end. For 4 years, Liz had tried to erase Cari, to make her disappear, not just physically, but digitally, emotionally, completely. She had stolen her voice, her name, her presence. But in the end, it was Cari's ghost, her digital ghost, that led police to the truth. The story of Cari Farver is more than just a shocking true crime case. It's a terrifying example of how the digital world can be weaponized in ways we never imagined. When we think of identity theft, we often picture stolen credit card numbers or hacked social media accounts. But this case proves it can be so much more. Identity theft isn't just financial. It can be psychological, even deadly. Liz Golyar didn't just steal Cari's identity. She became her, controlling her presence online long after she was gone. For 4 years, she manipulated reality, blurring the lines between truth and deception, using technology to convince the world that a dead woman was still alive. And if she could do it, who's to say it couldn't happen again? The dark side of the digital age. We live in a world where technology connects us, but it also makes us vulnerable. Today, with AI-generated voices, deepfake videos, and cyberstalking on the rise, the idea of someone taking over another person's life, digitally or otherwise, is no longer science fiction. Imagine receiving a message from a loved one, only to find out later that it wasn't really them. Imagine someone creating an entire online presence in your name, shaping your identity without you even knowing. Cari's case isn't just a warning. It's a glimpse into a terrifying new reality. In a world where our lives exist online as much as they do in real life, we have to ask ourselves, what happens when someone takes over your life, even after death? Liz thought she had erased Cari, thought she had rewritten the story. But in the end, it was Cari's own digital ghost, the messages, the deception, the relentless online presence that led police to the truth. This case reminds us that even the most carefully crafted lies will eventually unravel. Technology can be a powerful tool, but in the wrong hands, it can become a weapon. The most terrifying ghosts may not come from the afterlife. They may be the ones created by us. This case leaves us with a terrifying thought. If someone could fake an entire identity for years, could it happen again? Could it happen to you? Let us know in the comments. And if this story left you speechless, hit that like button and subscribe for more cases you won't believe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe.